Hi everybody, welcome back to a new video. The people that know me well, I guess they know that I'm a writer. Okay, I like to write, I like to express myself in a written form. Okay, so I have a surprise for today. Today's actually I have my book. One of my books actually. I've self-published it or self-printed it by myself on a small scale. As you can see, it's called A Thousand Thoughts Like Thunder. And I chose this name because first of all, it involves 12 short stories. Okay, so back in 2022, at that time in my life, I had written so many short stories, and I guess I prefer the short story style because they can be open-ended, they can be vague, they can be confusing, just like my life, to be honest. So what happened was actually I decided to group these short stories and edit them in a certain way so that I can re-release them, or I can publish them in this book, A Thousand Thoughts Like Thunder. So hence from the title, A Thousand Thoughts. Okay, the stories are meant to be confusing, they're meant to be vague, they're meant to be thought-provoking, to encourage you to think, to ask questions rather than have questions, because that's life. Okay, so A Thousand Thoughts Like Thunder. Okay, and actually I'm going to be reading one of the short stories today. Okay, as I said, there are 12 short stories, a collection of 12 short stories that I wrote and I published, and I'm going to be reading one of them today. Okay, but first of all, let me start by reading the introduction. Okay, so here we go. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What is life? Life is but a myriad of stories and experiences. Things happen to us and we live, we gain, we learn. Having said that, life is confusion at its best, making us having a complex range of emotions and a thousand thoughts like thunder in our deep inner psyches. Thoughts consume us and our emotions drive us for better and for worse. And sometimes things happen with no common logic behind them. That's life, and you have to embrace the inconsistency of it all. So the following written texts deal with common psychological and emotional issues people face in their daily lives. The shorter the story is, the more abstract and symbolic it is, and the more can be said about it. Thus, some may make you ponder its true purpose, if any. Throughout the following pages, I encourage you to digest the stories, understand what is said, read between the lines, and think and analyze what was not said. A thousand thoughts like thunder may hit your mind as you do so. Dive deep into them. Very, very good. So, in other words, the introduction is trying to give you a general outlook on the stories. They're meant to be, as I said, vague, confusing, to encourage you to ask questions. That's, I guess, my style. That's what I prefer, to be honest. Things that are open-ended and vague and so forth, so on and so forth. So let's start by reading the first story. The first story is called The Road Less Traveled By. Okay, The Road Less Traveled By. Okay, I'm going to be reading it, and then at the end maybe I can have a little bit of a commentary and encourage you to ask some questions and give me your opinion in the comments. Very good. So let's start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Road Less Traveled By. I found myself there, I found myself then, with no recollection of how my footsteps had driven me to that place or to the place I had not been to for 5 or 6 years. The heavens above had presumably opened up, and I had been dropped down from the sky to land in that forgotten place of the past, in front of that door once again. Was it all but a dream? Perhaps. My God, has it really been that long? I found myself thinking. Maybe this was my way of vindicating myself, excusing myself, alleviating the guilt I felt inside. The more in the past something is, the better you feel about it. That's what people always said. People lied though. For being in front of the door, all the same memories rushed to my mind instantly, like I'd never left here at all. I still remember the whole thing as if it were yesterday. I muttered to myself in disbelief of what was going on. Why was this happening? All the extreme specific and lustful sights, sounds, scents, touches and feelings hit my heart, engulfed my whole body and enriched my senses once again with life, or what seemed to be life. I found myself unable to breathe from the ecstasy of it all, as though my mind had shut down. But what life was that? I remembered that it was a part of my past, a terrible past that I had so loathed, and hoped I'd forget. The same past which somehow started my new life, wasn't it? I sighed. How everything has changed since I last saw that door. Back then I was one who wandered aimlessly on this earth, doing so little and not expecting much for the little I did. I was weak, yes, I was, carrying an immense pain in my heart. Somehow I pretended to be happy on the outside, but we all knew I was suffering within. Only my eyes would show my true colours, and that I faked everything for the sake of people. And for what exactly? It's not like they believed me anyway. And nothing. That's what I was to them. Love? I didn't know what that word meant. And as for respect, that wasn't something I saw from people. So what was the point of it? Unsurprisingly, I was scared. I was always scared back then, and I never felt at rest. Each day brought about its new circumstances and problems that shook me to my core. And as I fell down the abyss deeper and deeper, I was not able to deal with anything. Not to mention that the guilt killed me. I knew I was wrong, yes, I did, and would contemplate death as both a solution and a punishment. Misery filled my eyes as I drowned. But I tried. I tried and fell. I tried again. I tried everything to stop my return to such door, but it only filled me up with regret. At times I would list down some of the reasons why I shouldn't go back there. At others I would swear and promise that I would not go there. Those methods would work for many painful, anguish-filled days, but sadly I would give in to my fears again and would find myself driven involuntarily to that door I had so tried to escape. The memories filled me again. It was such an alluring door back then, always lit up with vivid colours. I must say I loved its decoration, its wooden handles, and its fresh red paint. Always open it was, and I did not even need to knock or push or use a key or anything to enter. In fact, the door followed me wherever I went. It entered me before I entered it. The door kept getting polished every day, or every hour, rather. This somehow drove away the boredom of routine, as it looked more pleasing every time I saw it. In front of the door was a small mat, written on it, "Enter," and so it was hard to resist that welcoming invitation. And inside was empty, more convenient and easier for everyone. I could always hear the faint whispers and laughing voices, yet could never see them. So I tried. How about now? Now I take a deep breath and climb up the platform and look at the door again. Now I really see it. It was a fire-burnt coloured door with the stench of vile vomit coming from it. It was once perhaps an appealing sight that had rotten by time. For me at least. Others may still see it as pleasing. The mat down below was the same one, only it appeared to have "do not" written before the other word. The words were small and covered in dust, but were clear as daylight, weren't they? Should I have a peek inside? I found my heart saying to me, and found my feet ready to move. Just a quick look won't do any harm. I trembled as I did so, unsure of my decision. But it was too late. My senses were in action, and I was on the move. But though it had no lock and was slightly ajar, the door would not let me in. No matter how hard my arms seemed to push, I could not enter. Was the door really that heavy to push? Deep down, I sighed in relief. Conversely, I even tried shutting it instead, but pulling it never worked either. Perhaps the door would always remain in that state for whoever wanted it. Perhaps it can never really be shut. Perhaps I am the unwanted guest, the exile who's not allowed in anymore. I sighed again as I gained control of my senses in this lifelike dream. Power seemed to fill me up. So, taking a deep breath and stepping backwards, I look at the door again. A feeling of being content couldn't escape my heart. Thousands of days have passed since I was last here, and everything has changed. I still remember each and every one of them. So it was perhaps a moment of pride and pure happiness that I gave the door a small farewell, turned back, and started walking on my way. The memory of that door will always be a part of me. The end. Excellent. Very good. So this is the road less travelled by. I encourage you now to write down in the comments what you understood. Perhaps you can play the the video, or listen to the commentary, or to listen to the story again, or read the story again, just to have a small glimpse or a small idea, I guess, about what you understood, right? Yeah. So, what does the door represent, and why was he there? Why wasn't he able to enter again? Does this story, do you feel as if you relate to this story on a personal level? Was this really a dream? Was it really happening? And more importantly, yes, the most important question is, yes, what does the door represent? And why was he filled up with guilt in the past? Lots of questions, right? Hence the title, 1,000 Thoughts Like Thunder. Excellent, very, very good. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope you enjoyed this video. So please, if you did, please give us a like, a share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and check out all the rest of the other videos on this channel. I'm sure you're going to enjoy them. So that's us for today. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Good.